What's going on, everyone? Let's look together at Benjamin Moore's Nimbus 1465. And just to clarify right from the start, we're talking about Nimbus, not Nimbus Gray, okay? They're both by the same company, but are very different colors. This color is more of a cool blue-gray, while today's color, Nimbus, is a soft grayish, which is a combination of gray and beige. I'm going to accomplish two things in this video, at least. First, I'll tell you all the need-to-know stuff about Nimbus, the paint color, how light it is, what kind of undertones it has, and how I would see it being used generally inside your home. And then there's the fun part, which is me showing you some coordinating paint colors that work with it, including a white, a light color, a medium color, and a dark color. So let's jump right in. So Nimbus is part of Benjamin Moore's Classics collection of colors. Not necessarily the newest and most up-to-date color palette, I guess, but it's one that contains a lot of excellent choices that maybe get forgotten about now and then. I'm guilty of this too, because as soon as the AF colors came out or the Color Stories palette was released, I was enamored by them. But seeing colors like Nimbus is just a reminder to revisit some of those older palettes, because colors, they're honestly pretty timeless individually. So what's interesting here is that Nimbus is a very soft gray that has a touch of warmth, but not necessarily in the traditional sense that you see nowadays, where there's more of a yellow or gold undertone present. The subtle warmth here feels like it's coming from a touch of warm brown combined with almost a stone gray. It's supposed to represent some of the stormy clouds it was named after, but they're not overly stormy in this case, because Nimbus is a fairly light color, all things considered. We can determine the color's lightness by looking at its light reflectance value, which you can find on the Benjamin Moore website. And it's really easy to interpret because essentially we're just looking at a 0 to 100 percentage, which is telling us how much light Nimbus reflects. It's just under 60%, which sort of puts it on the lighter side of mid-tone paint colors, and this tends to be one of my favorite ranges to work within, especially as a wall color. Almost a Goldilocks level of darkness, because it's not too dark where it'll feel heavy and lifeless, but also not too light where it'll be completely washed out with bright white light. It doesn't have very strong visual saturation, which means it will be on the more subtle side of things because of its abundance of gray. But you won't really confuse this color for primed walls that are still in need of a top coat. It looks like a color. The undertones here are tricky to notice for a lot of people, but essentially that little bit of brown can create the slightest purple undertone in actuality with your lighting. It is a rather muted purple on its own, and it really only becomes an issue if you're having trouble matching it with your flooring and perhaps your backsplash, because you want to make sure that they mesh together well rather than complement or oppose each other on the color wheel. Nimbus is in that sweet spot where I could see it working as a main color that can run throughout your entire home. But while warmer neutrals tend to work with more things, the slightly cooler leaning ones like this are a little more susceptible to having their undertones clashing a little bit. So just be mindful of that before you commit one way or the other. So let's start building our beautiful color palette with Nimbus being the cornerstone of it all. Luckily, it has that versatility where it can be your wall color in pretty much any room of your home as long as you enjoy grays. My goal here with this palette is to introduce some vibrancy while still playing with earthy grays a little bit of varying undertones just to create some variety. The white paint color I want to go with is White Dove, which is maybe not something that you would have expected because it does introduce a bit of a subtle creamy warmth, which may over-accentuate Nimbus's cool aspect. Because White Dove has a very soft warmth to it, which isn't akin to a bright yellow or anything, which could skew things a bit. It's one of those warm off-whites that tend to suit even those contemporary color schemes quite well. It also has quite a bit of a difference in lightness compared to Nimbus. So you will have lovely contrast as well. The light color pairing that I've chosen is arguably the accent color in this palette, which is a first. Normally, the light color ends up becoming the main color that you would continue in the larger parts of your home, but I see Nimbus doing that in this case. So your subtle accent color here is called Spring Bud, also from the Benjamin Moore Classics collection, like Nimbus. This color is an almost green tea ice cream, warm green pastel that really cuts through the violet undertone found in Nimbus. It becomes the accent because its color hue is pretty complementary to Nimbus's undertones, which is why it will really pop. It also has a contrast in lightness with a decent difference in light reflectance value, so that light airy quality will be accentuated a bit more. I see this being used in smaller pockets rather than large spaces like your hallway, unless you have a room that really suits it, like a solarium perhaps, or maybe the kitchen, anywhere you really want that energetic burst of beautiful color. It's not overly vibrant as well because it has this slightly foggy quality, sort of like a spring meadow in the early morning where the morning dew is still present. What a beautiful image. I mean, it is a beautiful color after all. Our mid-tone color pairing just kind of does the opposite thing, where instead of complementing the violet, it brings it to the forefront, and it's an even deeper mid-tone gray with an LRV of 41.5. The color is called Elephant Gray from the Color Preview collection, and what it does is it essentially takes brown and gray and creates taupe and then colors it with a bit of purple to add that depth. This is the color that really makes Nimbus look more akin to a true gray, because Elephant Gray has quite a bit more color and overall depth, being a darker color itself. I really like this color as a wall paint and not just an accent color either, so I like putting this in entire rooms. You can really have a classy living dining room painted with this, but its more natural fit is probably a bedroom color because it just has this level of regality to it. You can really wake up feeling like royalty with a color like this, but it still works within the neutral palette too. So, I mean, purple is super chic, y'all. Our final color pairing is the dark one, and to me, it maybe is the most natural fit in my eyes, and it is the dark indigo gray known as charcoal linen. What I love about this color is it has the slightest hint of icy purple, but it's more so about a deep shade of metallic blue that really finishes this whole color palette. Much like Benjamin Moore does in this photo, once you get this deep and saturated with your paint colors, it's sometimes nice to continue it onto your baseboards, especially if they're more modern and clean rather than traditional and intricate. It just streamlines the whole look to me. This is what the palette looks like all together. Let me know what you think and which color is your favorite. Catch you on the next one.